The Galactic Alliance chamber was filled with tension, the air thick with unease. The holographic projection of Earth's representative, Admiral Ethan Carter, flickered in the dimly lit room. His face was cold, his eyes vowed of the warmth the Alliance had come to associate with humanity. The chamber was packed with diplomats from 100 species, each murmuring among themselves as they reviewed the unthinkable. The massacre at Terran Colony 47. Images of burning cities, the bodies of civilians sprawled in the streets, and distress calls filled the air. They had done this. The very species that humanity had once saved from extinction had turned their weapons against their former allies. Admiral Carter's voice cut through the nose like a blade. We have always been your allies. We have bled for you, died for you. But today, they have shown us that friendship means nothing in this galaxy. His words were measured, but beneath them was an unshakable fury. The Council, a collective of species that prided themselves on diplomacy, had never seen humanity like this before. High Chancellor, a towering, with sapphire scales, leaned forward, his feathery crest bristling. Admiral Carter, please. We understand your pain, but a declaration of war. You understand nothing. Carter's voice was ice. You sit in your chambers and discuss treaties while our people burn. You debate the definition of justice while we bury our dead. His hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white. They were our allies, our friends. They came to us with pleas for help when they nearly wiped them out. We fought for them. We defended their colonies as if they were our own. And how do they repay us? With this. He gestured towards the floating images of destruction. They came in the night, slaughtering men, women, and children without warning, without cause. And now you ask us to wait? To negotiate? His laugh was humorless, a dry, hollow sound. No, that time has passed. Across the chamber, murmurs turned into urgent whispers. Some species, those who had witnessed human warfare firsthand, shifted uncomfortably. Others, to the full extent of what was coming, still clung to the hope that humanity would listen to reason. A diplomat, scales a dull shade of green, stepped forward cautiously. Admiral Carter, the actions of certain factions within my government do not. Enough, Carter snapped, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. Your people made their choice when they fired the first shot. Do you think we will hesitate now? He leaned forward, eyes locking onto the representative. You are prey who mistook yourselves for predators. You thought you could strike at us in the dark and that we would cower. But you have never seen us when we are truly at war. The chamber was silent. Even the most species among them had never heard such finality in a declaration. Carter turned to the rest of the council, his tone shifting from raw fury to something colden, more calculated. The Terran fleets are already mobilizing. This is not a request for aid, nor a plea for intervention. This is a courtesy. You may stay neutral, you may offer words of peace, but know this, nothing will stop what is coming. The Dominion will answer for what they have done. High Chancellor exhaled sharply. If you wage war against the balance of the galaxy will shift. This is not a small conflict, Admiral Carter. It could escalate beyond your control. Carter's expression did not change. You assume we haven't already accounted for that. He straightened, adjusting his uniform. For centuries, we have fought wars on your behalf. We have shed blood in battles that were not ours. And yet, when the first blade was turned against us, you hesitated. Remember this moment. Remember that we gave you a choice. The hologram flickered, then disappeared entirely, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The delegates exchanged nervous glances, the weight of what had just transpired settling over them. In the depths of space, within the Sol system, the might of humanity stirred. Warships, sleek and armored, prepared for departure. Factories roared to life, churning out weapons of destruction at an unprecedented rate. Sleeper agents, hidden deep within space, received their orders. No negotiations. No mercy. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Indomitable, Admiral Carter stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the massive fleet assembling before him. His officers moved with precision, every man and woman prepared for what was to come. A junior officer approached hesitantly. "Sir, all fleet movements have been confirmed. We await your command." Carter did not turn. His eyes remained fixed on the stars, on the distant worlds that would soon burn. "Then let's not keep them waiting." Across the galaxy, the Dominion had no idea what was coming for them. They had made their choice. Now, humanity would show them the cost. The fleet of the Terran Republic emerged from the void like an oncoming storm, their warships cutting through the darkness of space with grim purpose. The Dominion had underestimated humanity, a mistake that would soon be their undoing. On board the flagship Indomitable, Admiral Ethan Carter stood at the command deck, his face illuminated by the red glow of tactical readouts. Around him, officers worked with military precision, preparing for the next phase of the campaign. Reports flowed in from various sectors, battle groups in position, planetary defenses mapped, enemy fleet movements tracked. Everything was going according to plan. Across the system, the Prime lay beneath the swirling cosmic dust of a nebula. Once thought impenetrable, its aorbiter defenses now faced a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Warships scrambled to intercept, their commandants still deluding themselves into thinking they had the upper hand. But they were slow, uncoordinated, and woefully unprepared for what was coming. The humans had not come for conquest. They had come for vengeance. "Admiral, enemy fleet is deploying along the outer perimeter," a lieutenant reported, her voice steady but urgent. "Their flagship is broadcasting a demand for negotiations." Carter didn't even glance at the transmission request. "Ignore it," he said coldly. "Deploy the first wave." Across the fleet, Terran warships moved with eerie synchrony, their formations calculated to precision. The first assault came in the form of cyber warfare, viruses infecting targeting systems, turning their automated defenses into useless debris. Then came the aorbiter bombardment. Batteries and kinetic projectors rained down on Prime's outer colonies, each impact a calculated strike to cripple infrastructure without causing unnecessary civilian casualties. The humans were not here to exterminate. They were here to break the completely. On the bridge of the struggled to maintain control of his forces. The humans fought unlike any enemy the Dominion had faced before. Their tactics were brutal yet efficient, their technology adaptable in ways the had not anticipated. Every strategy deployed was countered before it could be fully executed, every maneuver disrupted with ruthless precision. The Dominion had fought countless wars, had conquered countless worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that fought with such singular fury. "Our aorbiter stations are being overwhelmed," one of his officers cried out. "The humans." "I know what the humans are doing," snarled, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Order all remaining forces to regroup at the primary defense line. We will not fall this day." But even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were a lie. The defense line was already collapsing. Terran warships had punctured through their ranks, delivering devastating payloads that crippled ship after ship. Stealth bombers emerged from the shadows of debris fields, striking at vulnerable engines and reactor cores. Boarding parties stormed enemy vessels, their soldiers moving with terrifying efficiency, clearing entire decks in minutes. The humans had learned from centuries of war, and now they were unleashing everything they had. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Carter watched as his fleet tore through the enemy lines. His expression remained impassive, his mind focused solely on the objective. They had called for war, and now war had come to their doorstep. "Admiral," an officer spoke, drawing his attention. "We have visual confirmation. The enemy flagship is attempting to withdraw." Carter's lips pressed into a thin line. He had expected as much. They were cowards at heart, only willing to fight when they had the advantage. Cut off their escape. Bring down their engines. Moments later, Fire lanced through the void, striking the propulsion systems. The flagship shuddered as explosions rippled across its hull, flames bursting from its crippled engines. Its retreat was over. A flickering transmission appeared on the Indomitable's main screen, revealing desperate visage. His posture was gone, replaced by something more desperate, more fearful. "Admiral Carter," the commandant said, his voice strained. "There has been enough bloodshed. Let us speak." Carter stepped forward, arms crossed behind his back. "You wish to negotiate now?" His voice was quiet, yet it carried a dangerous weight. "Where was your mercy when you slaughtered our people? When you razed our colony without warning?" He let the silence stretch between them, watching as struggled to find words. "You wanted war," Carter continued, his tone dark and final. "And now you have it." Mandibles clicked rapidly, a nervous tick that betrayed his fear. We will surrender. The Dominion will withdraw from all human territories. We will make reparations." Carter's expression did not change. "You think this is about territory? About reparations?" He took a step closer to the transmission. "This is about ensuring that no one ever makes the mistake of underestimating us again." A signal was sent through the fleet. The final aordan. In an instant, Terran warships unleashed a barrage upon the remaining Dominion forces. The was torn apart in a series of fiery detonations, its remains joining the graveyard of shattered ships floating above Prime. The surviving forces scattered, their fleets in disarray, their command structure shattered. On the planet's surface, military installations fell one by one as Terran strike teams dismantled what little resistance remained. Prime was not conquered, but it was left defenseless, its people now at the mercy of the humans they had once betrayed. Carter exhaled, his fists tightening at his sides. "War is over," he murmured, though he knew it was not. This was only the beginning. Humanity had once extended a hand in friendship. Now, they would show the galaxy what happened when that hand was bitten. The city of Prime burned. Once a glittering jewel of the Dominion, its towering spires now lay in ruin, shattered by a orbiter bombardment and the relentless advance of Terran forces. Smoke curled into the alien sky, mixing with the acrid scent of scorched matter and charred bodies. In the ruined streets, human soldiers moved with methodical precision, their battered armor smeared with dust and blood, their weapons at the ready. They were not here for conquest. They were here for justice. Captain Elias Grant adjusted his visor, scanning the boulevard ahead. The remnants of a defense force had taken position inside a collapsed government building, using the wreckage as cover for their last stand. Grant had fought in a dozen battles across the stars, but never had he seen an enemy so utterly broken. The warriors of the Dominion clung to their rifles with trembling hands, their compound eyes darting wildly as the sounds of approaching Terran boots echoed through the ruined streets. "Thermals are picking up 15 hostiles inside the structure," came the voice of Sergeant Reyes over the comms. "Mostly wounded. Not a single heavy weapon among them." Grant exhaled. A year ago, these same soldiers had left as they slaughtered human colonists, tearing through helpless civilians with brutal efficiency. There had been no hesitation when they bombed Terra Nova's cities into dust, no mercy when they turned defenseless settlements into graveyards. They had thought humanity weak, uneasy conquest. Now, they cowered in the ruins of their own world, facing an enemy that had not only survived but had come back stronger. "Send in a drone," Grant ordered. A small reconnaissance unit zipped forward, its sensors feeding data into the squad's HUDs. Inside the crumbling structure, the warriors huddled together, their battle armor scorched and cracked. One of them, an officer by the markings on his chest plate, turned to his subordinates and let out a series of clicks and hisses, his species' native language. The translation software struggled with the nuances, but the message was clear enough. "We hold here. If they take this city, the Dominion is lost." Grant grimaced. The Dominion was already lost. They just hadn't accepted it yet. He motioned to his squad. "First, Take them alive if possible. The Aeordan was met with grim nods. A year ago, restraint would have been unthinkable. After the massacres on Terra Nova, many had sworn vengeance, demanding that the Dominion be wiped from existence. But the Terran Republic was not the Dominion. They did not slaughter the defenseless. They would not become the monsters they had sworn to destroy. Three arced through the shattered windows, detonating in bursts of blinding white light. The screams of the filled the air as the soldiers stormed inside, rifles raised, movements swift and practiced. A few of the aliens resisted, firing wildly in desperation. They were cut down before their fingers could squeeze the trigger a second time. Within moments, it was over. The remaining lay on the ground, disarmed, their weapons kicked away. Some clutched at their injuries, mandibles clicking in pain and fear. Their officer, the one who had spoken of making a final stand, knelt in the center of the room, his claws clenched into trembling fists. Grant stepped forward, looming over the defeated commandant. "Is this what you expected?" he asked, his voice even. "When your people declared war, did you think it would end like this?" The officer's mandibles twitched, his compound eyes narrowing. "You are not like the others," he rasped in halting stand. "Not like those we have conquered." Grant stared at him for a long moment before shaking his head. "No," he said quietly. "We're not." The sound of distant explosions rumbled through the city. The last of the resistance was crumbling. Prime would fall before the day was over. The war, for all intents and purposes, was finished. A voice crackled over Grant's radio. "Captain, this is command. We've received word from Admiral Carter. Is dead. The Dominion leadership is in chaos. We're initiating final operations." Grant's jaw tightened. He knew what final operations meant. Every major military installation would be secured or destroyed. The Dominion's ability to wage war would be utterly dismantled. And for those who still refused to surrender, the Terran Republic would ensure they never posed a threat again. He looked down at the captured officer. The alien met his gaze with something resembling defiance, but beneath it was the unmistakable shadow of fear. They had believed themselves to be the galaxy's apex predators, the conquerors of countless worlds. Now they were the prey. Grant keyed his calm. "And then stood, command," he said. Then, to his men, "Get these prisoners secured. We're moving out." As his squad bound the hands and escorted them out of the ruins, Grant cast one last look at the burning skyline of Prime. The war had begun with a betrayal. It had ended with a reckoning. The war was over. The Dominion, once a proud and unchallenged empire, lay in ruins. Across the shattered remains of their worlds, Terran forces moved with calculated efficiency, securing strongholds, dismantling weapon stockpiles, and overseeing the surrender of what remained of the enemy's military. What had begun as an unprovoked massacre on the human colony of Terra Nova had ended in the destruction of the Dominion itself. But while the battles had ceased, the true challenge was only just beginning. Admiral Sarah Carter stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display before her. The galactic map shimmered with indicators of occupied territories, refugee movements, and diplomatic communications from species now scrambling to realign themselves in the wake of the Dominion's collapse. Victory had come at a cost, but now humanity had an opportunity that no one had anticipated. When that Carter knew they could not afford to squander. A junior officer approached, saluting crisply. "Admiral, our teams have completed securing the last remaining shipyards in the core system." Resistance was minimal. Most of their military leadership has either fled or surrendered. Carter gave a slow nod. "And the civilians?" "Displaced. Scattered. There are reports of rioting, power struggles, local factions trying to seize control. Without the Dominion's central government, it's chaos." She had expected as much. The Dominion had ruled through fear, subjugation, and absolute control. The moment that control was broken, the entire structure had collapsed in on itself. But it was not humanity's way to simply destroy and walk away. Some called for complete eradication, the way the had once done to weaker civilizations. But humans had been the underdogs once. They knew what it was to fight, to endure, to survive when the odds were impossible. Deploy relief teams, she ordered. Medical supplies, food, whatever we can spare. The fighting is done. Now we need to show them what the Terran Republic truly stands for. The officer hesitated. With all due respect, Admiral, after what they did to us, after what they did to Terra Nova. Carter turned to him, her expression firm but measured. I know exactly what they did. I remember the burning cities. The evacuation ships shot down in cold blood. The millions of lives lost because they thought we were beneath them. I know. And if we were like them, we would burn their worlds to ash and leave them to rot. But we are not them. The officer nodded sharply. And then stood, ma'am. Carter returned her gaze to the display. Even now, Terran forces were establishing footholds across what had once been the Minyan's peace. What came next would be just as difficult as the war itself. There would be resistance. There always was. But now, the Republic had a choice, to rebuild, or to rule through fear, as the Dominion had done before them. A transmission request flashed on the display, encrypted. Carter activated and a familiar face appeared before her. President Cowrie, she greeted, standing at attention. Admiral Carter, the leader of the Terran Republic, responded. He looked weary, but there was an undeniable fire in his eyes. The Senate has been reviewing the situation. The war is over, but we have a decision to make. What will become of the people? Carter had already anticipated this question. Sir, leaving them to collapse entirely would only ensure another war down the line. If we show them another way, if we integrate the survivors instead of eradicating them, we create stability, not just for them, but for us. Cowrie studied her carefully. There are those who want vengeance. Complete annihilation. Carter's jaw tightened. I understand why. But if we do that, then we become what they feared us to be. And the next time another species encounters us, they'll assume the worst. I propose controlled occupation. Governance until a stable system can be established. We help them rebuild, not as conquerors, but as something more. There was a long silence. Then, Cowrie gave a small nod. You may get some pushback from the Senate, but I agree with you. Humanity survived because we adapted, because we endured. If we only take vengeance, we invite the same fate upon ourselves. The transmission ended, and Carter turned back to the bridge crew. Begin preparations. We're not leaving this place in ruin. We're here to make sure it never comes to this again. Across the Minyan's peace, Terran ships descended onto broken worlds, not as conquerors, but as something more. A force that had been underestimated, challenged, and tested beyond measure, but when that had emerged stronger. They had declared war, believing they would break humanity. Instead, humanity had rewritten the rules of war itself.